Hello, everybody. We have Mr. Seth Grae with us. He is the CEO of Lightbridge Corporation. Hello, Mr. Grae, and welcome to Business World.
Hello, it is a real pleasure to be speaking with you today.
It's likewise. I mean, I hope you had a good stay in India during your visit, and it was a fruitful interaction session for you.
Yes, it's been an amazing last 5 days with the U.S. Civil Nuclear Trade Mission in India meeting with leaders of the government and the private sector about potentially working together in the tremendous growth of India's nuclear power sector.
So, when we talk about India and US and the nuclear cooperation, it's something that it's a deal that has been signed about 2 decades ago. So, why has the commercial nuclear cooperation moved slower than expected, and what can we do to unlock that momentum now?
Well, first of all, I think the US government at the time did not prioritize cooperation between American and Indian companies in nuclear power as much as both governments are doing today, actually. I think that in India, there was very little nuclear power and not great plans for growth of power. India domestically could handle most of what it wanted, or with just some help from foreign partners. Now, India has about 8 gigawatts electric of nuclear power in the whole country. That's about as much power as New York City uses. But India has a policy now to grow that from 8 to 100 gigawatts electric of nuclear power by 2047, which is as much nuclear power as the US has. That's about a fifth of all the electric power in the United States. And I think that to do that, the government of India and the private sector have decided they must have foreign assistance. There simply is not the capacity to do that within India. And the US also has a priority of building its own nuclear power tremendously to quadruple the nuclear power in the US by 2050, and also to cooperate with foreign firms and governments. So now is a very different time.
India also has a target of achieving 100 gigawatt of power by 2047. Nuclear power in particular. So, what role do you think US companies are playing in helping India achieve this target?
Well, right now, the US companies are building relationships in the Indian government and in the private sector with the companies that are already involved in nuclear in India and would like to move into it. And the US companies have a lot to offer. The United States produces virtually everything needed to produce and operate a large nuclear power program. The United States operates 100 gigawatts of nuclear power, which is India's target to get there. And the United States operates these reactors at more than 90% of full power all of the time, with what's called over a 90% capacity factor. That is by far the highest in the world. So the United States can help not just in the design, the manufacture of the components, the building of the reactors, but the best practices for operating them so that you get the most efficiency out of them and overall the lowest price of electricity generated from them.
I was doing a bit of digging and I came across a statement where it was mentioned that light bridge fuel can be used in India's heavy water reactors. It's compatible with the technology. So, what practical steps would be needed before we can adapt or deploy such a tech in India?
Right. So the government program is for pressurized heavy water reactors that can use Lightbridge fuel. And the private sector is also looking at pressurized water reactors, like most of the reactors in the United States today. So I think that the fuel can be used in both. We're developing it for both. Our emphasis has been on the pressurized water reactor for the US reactors, but we've done quite a bit of work now for the pressurized heavy water reactors. And practically, one of the good things that will need to happen is if the American Nuclear Regulatory Authority, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and India's Nuclear Regulatory Authority start to harmonize their regulations so that something that is licensed to be used safely in the nuclear power sector in one can be used in the other country without too much of a regulatory hurdle. So I'm sitting at an airport right now where there are airplanes coming and going from all over the world without needing to be licensed everywhere they take off and everywhere they land because of a regulatory regime that allows that. And the more we get to that in nuclear, where it's trusted, it's safe as much as aviation across different borders, that's very good. Now, Lightbridge is in the process of selecting a site where we will build our pilot scale plant to manufacture our fuel for commercial reactors on a site where the plant can grow to a large commercial scale plant over time. And then we're going to be looking at sites regionally around the world for other similar manufacturing plants. And India makes tremendous sense for a lot of reasons, including because India domestically wants to grow to be as big in nuclear power as the United States is today. And also, it's a very good place for manufacturing for export for elsewhere in Asia.
For years, nuclear liabilities laws have been cited as a key hurdle for US companies in India. So, do you think that the regulatory environment is better now, or is there still a lot more to be desired?
There's more to be desired, and that might change for the better soon. India very recently passed a law called the Shanti Act, that
Yes.
in the text of the law does fix the issue. And it's very important because if a vendor, say someone that sells a valve to a reactor, gets blamed and is found guilty in an Indian court, say, for the valve being defective, and might be held liable for $1 billion of damage to the reactor building or something in some potential incident. That's not how India work, how liability works under international treaties. It is potentially how it could work in India today. So the liability flows to the operator of the plant. And the operator can meet standards that can have its liability limited by its government. And the Shanti Act goes a long way toward doing that, but foreign firms will have to operate under rules that will come from the Department of Energy probably in about the next 3 or 4 months, and no one has seen those rules yet. So hopefully in the next 3 or 4 months, those rules will come out and be very good. If not, there might be more work to do on trying to make more progress.
Great. I mean, I hope it is pretty conducive for companies to now invest in this particular sector. It's especially with the Middle East scene that's going on. People want to be energy independent now, so it seems like a good
Yes,
time.
yes, very much so.
So, given the baby steps, I would say, but an initiation nevertheless, are we entering a new phase of India-US nuclear cooperation, and particularly with growing energy demands and energy security concerns that have sprung up in recent times?
I think so. The governments and the companies are saying and apparently doing the right things to get there in terms of really having a changed relationship of working together toward building cooperative large nuclear program in India, as well as cooperating on exports to other parts of the world from both countries and investments into both countries. And President Trump, when he met with Prime Minister Modi recently, said that civil nuclear cooperation is an important part of the US India relationship. Throughout government, including all the government officials from different parts of the US government that participated on the trade mission over the last week, there was a unified feeling from across government, and we certainly felt this from the Indian side too. And so hopefully this will happen. We'll see how the rules come in under the Shanti Act. There will be other countries trying to penetrate the Indian market too, but I think no country has the combination of the latest, highest, best technology with the best operating record for reactors and combining with India the potential for the best manufacturing capacity. And the US and its companies are very willing to participate in training people. And the US, frankly, brings the world's highest standards of nuclear safety, nuclear nonproliferation. Our companies are very transparent. And this is part of what helps lead to such a successful nuclear power program.
While we are talking about reactors, there are still other avenues wherein India and US can explore collaboration. So, where do you see the biggest opportunities lying? Is it in fuel manufacturing or supply chain or nuclear tech or any other field?
I think overall it will be fuel because you build a reactor once and then it can run for 100 years. We have reactors in the United States already receiving licenses to operate for 80 years, and their operators are planning and talking about applying for another 20 on top of that. And they need to buy fuel for that whole century. In a sense, the only thing that's nuclear in a nuclear reactor is the fuel. And all of the good things about a nuclear reactor are because of the fuel, because it makes all the power. That's the good thing. And anything that could be bad is because of the fuel in terms of radiation, a potential meltdown producing hydrogen gas that exploded at Fukushima. So when you have technological advancement like Lightbridge fuel that heightens the good, that allows a reactor to make much more power and reduces the cost of producing that power, but totally eliminates or significantly reduces all of the bad with much greater safety, much greater non-proliferation, then that combination for a century of operations is, I think, a winning combination. And the potential to cooperate on the manufacturing facilities to deploy the fuel is a very good area of cooperation for domestic and export markets.
Right. The US market, nuclear market, is of course much bigger than India's. A lot of energy storage and a lot of energy capacity has already been achieved there. So, what lessons can India take from the US when it comes to expanding its nuclear ambitions?
Well, the US has much more in the private sector in nuclear than India does. The government in the US regulates the safety and the security of the reactors, but the private sector does almost everything else on designing and manufacturing the components, building the reactors, operating the reactors. And I think private sector increasing involvement in nuclear is a good thing. And with some competition within the supply chains to nuclear. I think that, as I mentioned, regulatory harmonization so that components made in one country can be more readily used in another country. Sometimes we see regulation as almost a trade barrier to going into some countries in different industries. And I think, as I said, the United States experience in operating reactors, the United States has had more than a 90% capacity factor operating its reactors for 30 years now. But before that, it wasn't so good. It took 30 years for the United States to learn all the lessons about how to operate reactors so well. And now we're having some reactors operating at over 95% capacity factor, including one of the new reactors built in the state of Georgia recently, just from startup, is operating so well. And so I think cooperation on that type of thing, if India wants to have 100 gigawatts electric of nuclear power by 2047, but operates reactors at 50% capacity factor, only twice as many reactors. So that's an area where the US can be very helpful.
So, I think it's a good time for startups to take the nuclear route.
Yes,
Okay, great. It was lovely talking to you, Mr. Gray, and thank you for your inputs. There's something that you would
it's
like to add?
I would say it's a real pleasure talking to you and dealing with the noises here in the airport. And I look forward to speaking with you again. Thank you so much.